Samedi, coup d'envoi de la CAN Total Énergie Côte d'Ivoire 2023 sur la CRTV. Dès 20h25, cérémonie d'ouverture en direct d'Abidjan, suivi du premier match de la compétition Côte d'Ivoire-Guinée-Bissau. Solide et deux équipes en plein renouveau. Dès 23h15, post-game, débrief, analyse, moment fort. Rien ne vous échappera. On l'attend attendu. Sans fin, ce samedi 20h25 en direct sur CRTV au cœur de la nation.
Second time, Sadio Mane, third combinations in Senegal. The goalkeeper stayed at home. Allah, bottom corner. Oh, it's a good one. Oh, yes. Bullet here by Andy Series. The counter attack. Osimhen with a chance of a second. Osimhen, makes it look so easy. And here's Andre Ayew. That's the equaliser.
Ils vous donnent rendez-vous sur la chaîne CRTV du 13 janvier au 11 février 2020. CRTV au cœur.
We are just a few hours to the start of the 34th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations. This is the last edition of... We are going to lay... looking forward to a possibility for Cameroon to clinch a safe African title as winners of the Africa Cup of Nations in this edition of Countdown. And we will do that with our guest, Francis Quine. Francis, once more, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you once again for having me.
Let's begin our countdown this time around with the first lot, which happens to be AFCON updates. Talk about the prize money for the winners of the Africa Cup of Nations. It has been stepped up by the Confederation of African Football, CAF. The winner will back home $7 million, which is about 4 billion CFA funds.
Yes, it's just, again, further proof of just how profitable the industry and the business of football is. I think the Confederation of African Football have worked really hard to add value and to materialize the value in the proposition that is the AFCON, and that's why you see the pot increased in the way it has. So whether it's image rights, whether it's the brands that are being associated with the AFCON now, it's the ability to maximize the economic investment that goes into it and distribute this to participating federations for the growth of football locally, hopefully.
We're going to come back to you to talk about the increase in prize money for the trophy of the Africa Cup of Nations. But let's watch this report done for us by Daniel Dekonde on the latest AFCON updates a few hours to the start of this competition.
The 2023 Africa Cup of Nations winners will go home with a 40% increase. According to the Confederation of African Football, CAF announced the gold-plated trophy is now valued at $7 million. That's about 4 billion Central African francs. While the winners will go home with that amount, the runners-up will cash in $4 million. Each of the semi-finalists will receive $2.5 million, and the quarter-finalists will back home $1.3 million apiece. CAF head Patrice Motsepe is confident the increase will contribute in developing football in member associations on the continent. 2022 in Cameroon. Nigeria got when they became champions in 2019. Elsewhere, CAF has released latest pictures of the Alassane Ouattara Stadium, the AFCON opener between the hosts Ivory Coast and Guinea-Bissau this Saturday. The stadium, which can hold up to 60,000, is the application fans can download to stay abreast with the latest from fan zones and other AFCON. The app can be gotten on Play Store or Google Play, and it's designed by the local organizing committee of the competition.
Francis, we get to see that's what was stadium in Abidjan, ready for at the Wimbe Sports Complex. Owner of the Africa Cup of
all systems go now. We've been anticipating this moment for quite some time. Things look ready. The grass is green. The seats are in place. The gates work. And now all we need is to have a beautiful game and launch this fantastic tournament.
And we get from some of our special envoys who are already in Côte d'Ivoire. Modalities put in place by the local organizing committee in Côte d'Ivoire upon arrival. Every foreigner upon arrival, you've been issued a SIM card with to communicate easily while members of the different delegations to get regular updates about this competition.
It's lovely to see the use and the role of technology at present, and I think the LOC has done a really, really good job. I think if we go back to the Confederations Cup in Russia, I believe it was one of the first times that such a system was put in place, and this LOC has taken some leaps was local, and I think that's one of the things that we must also applaud, the use of locally trained technicians. The app was developed in the Côte d'Ivoire, and so far nobody's complaining about it. It's a demonstration of our ability as a continent to be self-reliant. But it's also very reassuring for guests that at any point in time, whether the phones that they traveled in with are able to connect to their home service providers, with a service like this, they're able to stay in touch with family.
And let's now talk about our player profile, the player we are profiling in this last edition of Countdown Series Sports. Captain for the Stallions of Burkina Faso, who plays for Aston Villa in the English Premier League, formerly of Chelsea, and who secretly has Burkina Faso, Bertrand Traoré in this profile.
Of Bobo Dioulasso, the 1.81 meter tall forward attacking midfielder, plays for Premier League club Aston Villa and captains the Burkinabe national selection from 2009 to 2010, and thereafter with his senior career in Chelsea still in 2014, stretching out to Vitesse Arnhem and Ajax Amsterdam, all in Holland, Olympique Lyonnais in France, Istanbul, Betaksehi, where he has featured 12 matches and slotted in 2 goals in Turkey, and now Aston Villa in England. On the international scene, Bertrand Traoré played for the Burkina goals. In 2011, he picked up a spot with the Stallions of Burkina. Has played 2 AFCONs, the 2017 edition in Gabon, where he took home the bronze medal, and the 2021 edition in Cameroon. He is 2023 in Côte d'Ivoire for the 3rd appearance. The African League
2011, but the under-17 football. So this time with 74 caps at the senior level, 17 goals, just 2 Africa Cup of Nations to his credit, and this will be his third AFCON, Bertrand Traoré.
An undisputable talent, emerged on the scene really young. I remember we were part of a scouting exercise that looked at him many years him at the time that he was identified, spoke volumes for his talent. Some of us still believe he hasn't fulfilled potential that he demonstrated in part of his career. But for Burkina Faso, he remains an emblematic unquestioned or so. This one pull a nation that at this particular point as well is reliving one of its great moments. They have a great sense of dignity as a people. And when you know the man himself and his family, the way they carry themselves, the way they conduct themselves, it transmits itself even to the football pitch. A lot of dignity, a lot of poise, and a lot of purpose. So we look forward to seeing what Armand will do with Burkina Faso this time around. And
so far, he remains, he has been able to write his name in gold in the history book of the Africa Cup of Nations. One of the youngest to have appeared in the final of the Africa Cup of Nations. He was just 15 in 2012 when he appeared for the Stallions for Burkina Faso. This is a player whose late dad was a footballer. One of his siblings equally a footballer, and looking forward to doing better this time around in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes, from a family with a very strong history in the game. To be a professional in the game. His actually a manager. He has one of his siblings who manages his affairs for him. I think the challenge he has had has been at Aston Villa in particular in more recent years with getting a string of games together. But I think with his national team, he's able to. And so what we will be seeing through some days and weeks will be an Armand and a Bertrand who is in a better position to exhibit the wares and talents that we know he possesses. And we can only wish him well.
As we wish him well, we will equally wish well to Cameroon's Indomitable Lions. This is a team we are going to profile in this last edition of a countdown on CRTV Sports and Entertainment. Obviously, we are Cameroonians, and 5 times we have won the Africa Cup of Nations, and our wish is to see the Lions lift the trophy for the 6th time after they won the competition in 1988, 2000, 2002, and 2017. We lost at the final in 1986, and likewise lost at the final in 2008 against Egypt, 2006 and 2008. But this time around, the Lions are poised and ready to make the nation proud. Let's get to profile Cameroon's Indomitable Lions in this report done for us by Wilson Mengole.
The Indomitable Lions of Cameroon represents Cameroon's men's international football. It's controlled by the Federation of Cameroon Football. The team's tactician is Ringo Bessong, a former professional footballer, 47 African Cup of Nations, and served as captain in 5. The ones he was not captain were in South Africa in 1990, Burkina Faso in 1998, and Angola in 2010. As a player, he won 2 African Cup of Nations, 2000 and 2002. The Cameroonian hope, with his world of experience in African football, of late Stephen Kechi of Nigeria and Mahoud El Gori of Egypt, to have won the AFCON title as both player and a coach. Ringo Bessong is equally the most capped player in the national selection of Cameroon with 137 appearances.
Has swung him dangerously towards the near post, and Cameroon have the opening they wanted.
The team's all-time goal scorer is Samuel Eto'o with 56 goals. The Indomitable Lions of Cameroon are currently ranked 46 in the world by the World Football Governing Body FIFA. Their highest ranking came in 2006, where they were ranked 11. Their biggest win was in 1970. Their biggest defeat was against South Korea, 5-0 in 1984. The Lions have appeared in the final phase of the AFCON for 1988, 2000, 2002, and 2017. Of the previous edition of the AFCON, where they finished third as host, being reigning champions Senegal and Egypt.
Dans les nuages, car il a gagné son trophée. Celle où ils avaient battu le Ghana 1-0, ont dû céder face à ce Cameroun surprenant.
Apart from the Egyptians who've won the Africa Cup of Nations 7 times, we have Cameroon that have won it 5 times. You've been monitoring the national football team of Cameroon, the Indomitable Lions. The last time we won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2017, when very few expected Cameroon to get to that level of the competition. Here we are at another stage of the Africa Cup of Nations with very few who are still convinced. Do you think Cameroon has what it takes? The present generation of players, the present team retains by Coach Vidéo.
I think so. As a nation, we tend to do best when our expectations are lower. And the pressure, by inference, is also lower than on the players. But there's something special about this moment, in my opinion. I think they're surrounded by good, experienced winners and leaders, from the federation boss in Samuel Eto'o to the coach in Rigobert Song. You look around the technical staff, you have people like Patrick Mboma, you have people like Raymond Kalla. These are all individuals have any doubt or looking for people who can inspire or show them the way to a trophy. They have that in the technical, even amongst the playing staff. And the captain, in Vincent Abubakar, have a person who has already lifted an AFCON. You have the experience and you have the youth. And the balance that has been struck in this particular squad, for me, bodes well for the future. We have had a transition, a generational transition in talent without it being announced. So we've had a smooth transition from those who were to those who are, with the potential of some of those who will be already a part of this squad. And so it bodes well for a 2026, for the World Cup in North America. But at present, I think there is enough around this team for us to believe that if the gods of football...
And the wish is to see Cameroon win, and one of those who is quite looking forward to another win for Cameroon is the coach himself, Rigobert Song. Twice he has won the Africa Cup of Nations as a player, and we want this time around to join the club of a very few in Africa who've won this competition as players, and we want this time around to join the club of a very few in Africa who've won this competition as players. And likewise, as a football coach, given that this is going to be his first AFCON as coach of a national football team.
I think there's something truly special about this individual. He may not be the best tactician in the world, but I think there are very few Cameroonians who would dispute the assertion that he is a rather blessed individual. When you know his personal parcours, with the challenges he has had with his health, it was not so many years ago where few believed he would be able to even walk, let alone talk, let alone lead a team of men into battle. His spirit, whether it's the Hemle or whether it's the fighting spirit of the lion, there is something particularly unique about this individual that I think he brings to the game in the way few can. And so I will not be surprised if at the end of this tournament or in a future tournament, he becomes one of the few players who also go on to win the tournament as a player and win as a coach. He has all it takes, and he is ably surrounded by a team that lend more than just coaching influences to what it is he brings, but they also lend a spiritual and supportive part to the work he does.
And when you look back at when Cameroon won these previous editions of the Africa Cup of Nations, some say it's within a span of about not more than 6 years. We won in 1984 and won in 1988. We won in 2000, and 2 years after we won again in 2002. We came back and won in 2017. We'll have expected to win in 2021, where we hosted in Cameroon. Here we are in 2024. Within a span of about 6-7 years, would that be another opportunity for Cameroon to maintain the same stream of history within the Africa Cup of Nations back-to-back within about 6 to 7 years?
Success and victories are usually generational. And I think, and that's why I alluded to the point that we have in our captain somebody who's won this before. So when you have a team or effective or a selection of personnel who know what it takes to be successful, you have a currency of memory. You have a currency of influence. And so they can transmit the energy that they currently possess in the know-how, because very often you're playing against the same opposition. So if Cameroon were to meet a Senegal or were to meet an Egypt again, we will be playing against another 3 or 4 players that we had played not so long ago. So you have the ability to call on memory, to call on information that you possess, to be able to surmount the challenge that presents itself. So I think it's not unfathomable to think that Cameroon can believe that in 2024, technically 2023, they can win yet another trophy, which they just missed out on home turf. Coming third, your reporter referred to it with a rather challenging choice of terminology. But to be third in a tournament like the AFCON is by no means a failure. We understand that we could have done a lot better, but circumstances did not permit for that. But I do not think we were an abject failure in any way, shape, or form. So we can build on that third position by imagining that in the next tournament we can at least make it to the finals. And when we get to the finals, it's a toss of a coin.
And let's end with last lot. We get to discover some of these attractions in Côte d'Ivoire this time, with emphasis on attractions in San Pedro, such as the Taki Bay and the beach of Drewin, which are some of these attractions that will be quite key to spice the stay for the different delegations in San Pedro in Côte d'Ivoire. As Gideon the final tells us in this report.
San Pedro, situated on the southwestern coastline of Ivory Coast, is a must-see city in the country. With over 20 parks, beautiful beaches, picnic areas, marine life, and San Pedro is irresistible for tourists in the country. In San Pedro, visitors can enjoy windsurfing, skateboarding, sailing on the ocean as well, fishing in the ocean waters. Ocean food, wine bars, and a great lot of colonial buildings, museums and arts galleries will make a visit time in Ivory Coast worthwhile. Besides the beautiful sandy beaches, the San Pedro Tide National Park is one of the major tourist attractions. Interestingly, the park is home to the last sanctuary of pygmies in Ivory Coast. It also has a protected family of hippopotamuses. It was made a UNESCO World Heritage and is highly protected. Lovers of nature would also find the Nawa Falls of San Pedro amazing. The Governor's Palace at Santandra and the St. Peter's Cathedral will also offer tourists a view of the architecture. A visit to Ivory Coast without a stopover in San Pedro is out of the question for tourists seeking fun and beautiful life.
Beautiful attractions, Francis, which will always invite more and more persons who are yet to make up their minds to visit Côte d'Ivoire, be it in Bouaké, San Pedro, Yamoussoukro, Abidjan. to take off some time during their stay or visit in Cote d'Ivoire, during matches or after matches, to visit some of these attractions?
I think it's beautiful. And again, I commend the work you're doing by demonstrating all of these other non-football related spaces that people can go into. But again, this is just a tribute to the beauty of our continent, and that's what the AFCON gifts every host nation, the opportunity for people, including even some of the locals who we don't have the habit of traveling within our own countries, but to visit other parts of our continent and our nations.
Thank you so much, Francis, for always being part of the program, and thanks for being there. This is the last edition of Countdown on CRTV Sports and Entertainment prior to the upcoming Africa Cup of Nations that begins this Saturday. And Francis, we look forward to having you during some of the matches of the Africa Cup of Nations.
It will be an absolute pleasure, and we continue to root for Africa, but first of all, we root for Cameroon.
Very important. And on behalf of the entire production team, we want to say thank you to all our reporters, to all the technicians led by Karen Bala, and all our collaborators for being part of this countdown prior to this great football competition. We are going to have more programs on the channel during the Africa Cup of Nations, and we'll be there to satisfy you. Until then, stay tuned.